Okay, this next video is going to show you how to do a flowchart. Now this is going to be the most time consuming ones you do. I don't want you to do too many of these, but anything where we've got some interesting selection, some ifs going on, they're short, then flowcharts are quite nice. Otherwise what you should do is pseudocode for these, like I've shown in another video. So in order to do a flowchart we need Visio. Don't do it in Word, it'll take you forever. So if you go File, New, and then pick from the basic metric flowchart, okay, that'll create you a sheet like this. So I'm going to show you how I can turn KeyCheckTitle into a flowchart. Now all flowcharts start with what we call a terminator. So if you drag a terminator, put at the top of the screen, and have another terminator at the bottom of the screen. If you double click on these, you can put a title in. So our terminators are going to be called start and end. Okay, so that's the first bit. I'm also going to put a label on here, just like you're going to do when you do yours, and this is going to be flowchart of key check title using the correct names. Okay, so you can't see that very well, so let's zoom that in a little bit. Okay. I'm having to mess about. You're lucky you've got your two screens at college, but I haven't. Alright, so I'm like a pauper. Right, looking at this code, wherever we've got a decision like an if, that is a decision box, and they're a diamond shape. So the first thing we do when we run this subroutine, so after we've started, is we make a decision. So I'm going to just drop a decision box on. Okay, if that's true, we run this subroutine, which is a process. So I'm going to put that there like that. Now I want to put the decision that I'm going to make in here. Let me just go back to Visual Studio, and it's if the back button's pressed or escape is pressed. So I'm going to say back or escape pressed. So I'm just going to put the question in there. Okay, and if it is, I run the exit subroutine. Simple as that. Okay, but I need to now join some things up. So if I click on start and click that blue arrow, it'll automatically join that. And if I say, right, well, go across to there. Now, when I ask this question, back or escape pressed, I do that if that's true. So I say yes. Just double click the line, and then I put a yes on there. Now, if that isn't true, I move on to the next bit of code, which is another check. So let's just put another decision in, and this decision is left control pressed. So I'm going to double click that. So left control pressed. Okay, and if that is true, I run set up options, which is another process. So I do that, double click that, and say set up using the proper name, set up options. Okay, now I want to scroll that. I want to join this to that. I want this one to join to this next decision. So if I said no on that first question, I'll just go straight on to the next decision I need to make. Now, after I've done exit, theoretically we would stop. Okay, but the structure of what code we've produced would suggest that we check that if and then we do the next if. So really what we need is a dynamic connector tool, and we need to touch that line. Okay. Now that's not as tidy as I wanted it, so I'm just going to do that again. Alright, so you can see the arrow. You can tiddle about with these diagrams forever. Okay, and I'm going to do the same off of this in a minute, but let me just follow down. So we've got another decision to make. So after this left control pressed decision, which was this one, we now need to make this credit checking bit. Just notice how I've put these little comments in and they make it a lot easier to follow. So we've got another decision right there. Okay, and that follows on from that one. So I click the little blue arrow and I get that. So I can say no, and yes on those two lines. You've always got to have those no's and yeses. So again, I'm going to move on down from that, and I'm going to say round like that. Okay, so this first decision, so we're into this bit of code, was if I've pressed the Y button or the 5 button. So I'm going to say, double click that, and I'm going to say Y or 5 pressed. And that's, don't overcomplicate this. Okay, and if it is, we then have got a decision. Otherwise, let's just see, if we say no to that, the thing actually just ends. That's the end of the subroutine. So what we can do is we can say we want to connect down to that. Well, I can't actually see all of it, so I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. So I want to connect that all the way down to there, because I'd say right, and double click that and say no. So let's just look what we've got. So we're saying if they aren't pressed, finish, that's it, there's nothing else to do. But if they are, let's see what happens. So if that's true, we do this. We've got another decision. So we need to put another decision in. This is why we don't do flowcharts that much these days. Okay, so I'm going to join that. So I'm highlighting the blue. There you go, there's the arrow. Double click on that. So if we've said yes, the button was pressed, then we're going to do this next decision, which says credits is less than 9. So I'm just going to double click that. Credits is less than 9. I'm just going to put that in. Okay, so if that's true, we're going to do this bit of code. But if it's false, we're just going to finish. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my dynamic connector, and I'm going to join it to there. Okay, because I'm going to say right, end. So I'm going to scroll over a little bit, and then I've got to do this next bit of code, which is a process. So credits equals credits plus 1. So I'm on this. I'm going to say drag that on. Let's join that together, and I can double click that. Double click that and say yes. Okay, so in there for that process, double click credits equals credits plus 1. Now that's scrolled off and that looks awful. So what I'm going to do is drag that a little bit wider so it fits. Okay, so when I've done the credits, the next bit is to remove, and it says remove first bar of this type, insert coin. So it just means remove insert coin. So I'm going to have another process. I'm just going to put this one underneath. So select that one, join that way. So it's automatically doing the arrows for me, so I don't have to do too much work. It does actually get in a pickle sometimes and starts putting arrows on when you don't want them, so you have to do undo to get rid of that. So I'm just going to say remove insert coin sprite. So I'm just going to say that's the action that takes care. The next thing is a test, and this test says if there's a press start on screen, or if there isn't a press start on screen, sorry, show it. Run that subroutine, press start sprite. So I need a decision. Okay, so I'm going to scroll this down a bit, put a decision on. Select that, join that up, double click that, so press start on screen. If it's a no, okay, then I need to run the press start subroutine. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to say press start sprite, putting the proper name in. Join that. Remember that was if it's no. And if it's a yes, well actually I'm going to finish because there's nothing else, there's no more code there. It's just a series of those closing braces, so that means there's nothing. So I'm going to use that dynamic connector tool. I'll select it, it might help, there you go, it goes red. And I'm going to join to that. And it should cleverly do it for me. But I need to double click that and say yes. It was on screen, so don't put another one on there. Once I've done the press start sprite, that needs to finish. So dynamic connector tool again. Let's see if I can get the little red mark, shows it's worked. Connect to that, and it should line them all up. Okay, so let's just full screen that so I can see what it looks like. Now I've got, it's really badly laid out. It's a bit, this bit's really spread out, so I'm going to use the white selector tool. Just select that, and then I'm just going to use the cursor keys to scroll that up a bit. It highlights a couple of problems. The yes from that line is like gone onto that line. That's no good. I'm just going to delete that now, and I'm going to try drawing the connect tool this way instead, just to meet that line. And if I double click it now, it's still showing properly. Okay, let's put it on 100%. So I've tidied it up a little bit. Okay, do these in Visio, and then you can easily just do a select all and copy paste. Now the other thing that's happened there, it's done one of the annoying things, and it's attempted to make the line in a certain way. It just do this sometimes, but at the end of the day it doesn't matter. I think that looks a little bit tidier. This is, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger by changing the font size, which it defaults to 8 point for some reason. So I'm making that perfectly clear. Okay, so that's a flowchart, specifically of that KeyCheckTitle that I've got. Yours might be different. But if they start getting any more messy than this, and this is at the limit, do it as pseudocode instead, because it reads a hell of a lot nicer. Okay. What I'll do is in another video I'll show you this in pseudocode so you can see a difference. Okay, that's it.